Welcome to the City Art Salon. We're here tonight with Rachel Romano and Laura Demme, who are going to talk about coming out to see art, what you see when you come out to see art that you can't see online, and how they make their art and all things like that. So let's start with that question. What are brick and mortar galleries and venues for art still relevant, and why are they relevant? What do you experience when you come out to see art in person that you don't get from looking at it online?
Well, first of all, you get to meet really cool people. But, art is a living, breathing thing, even though it's a two-dimensional, or in Laura's case, three-dimensional, it's solid. You see what the artist infuses into that you cannot get online. I don't care how good the photographs are. It flattens it out. You're missing subtleties. You're missing schmutz marks. You're missing skin textures. Laura's sculpture over there, in particular, the detail, the fine little details and carving essences in the head, not deep carvings. There's no way you're going to get that in the photograph. And I just think it's a way to also commune, and we're already isolated. We don't need to be isolated anymore, and I think coming out and meeting with people, whether you like the art or not, is not the point. It's about coming out and having the discussion and inspiring one another, supporting one another, arguing with one another, all of that.
But also, I think that you develop a physical, personal relationship with art that you cannot get online. You have to, I can look at this piece, and I can go around and look at the back. The back is different than the front. You cannot do that online. It's just not possible. And I think you miss a lot when you look at art online. You miss, as Rachel said, the details, but you also miss the physical experience of being with art, which is, how would you know that Rachel's paintings are this big unless you stood in front of it and looked at it? You wouldn't get that same feeling. Or, even in a museum, you get a physical reaction to the size of art. It's definitely a three-dimensional, two-dimensional experience.
And if you're really nice, we'll let you touch it.
Really?
Well, someone asked me, and I said, yeah, and he gingerly went. And I said, yeah, you can touch it. He needed a touch. It's okay. I'm all right with that.
No, I'm okay. I'm okay with people touching my sculpture, but gently.
Gently. Yeah.
And don't try to lift it up. My pieces aren't always
Detachable.
attached.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're just balanced. So you have to
like this, right?
you have to be careful. Well, this head does come off.
But still, you wouldn't
But you wouldn't know that,
You would never know that.
Kajing crash.
Right.
I'm allowed to do that, you're not. A lot of my pieces are detachable, or are pieces that have been put together in a certain way. The attachment is just as important as the fact that it's attached. The attachment has meaning. Everything has meaning, so when you look at art, you don't always get the full picture online, I don't think. Plus, it's so flat.
And the experience.
And there's no human experience.
There's no human experience.
Yeah.
And interacting with the artists. I think, Rachel, you likened it to a performance.
Yeah, it's no different than going to a theater performance. The artists, when they're putting together a show, it's really the best way you can honor them is come out as if you would to a music concert, a poetry reading, a theatrical performance, because it is a performance for them that night. They've been locked in the studio doing this, questioning everything they're doing, ready to commit Harry done. And you come out and it is what it is, it's done. But to share that with people it is the performance. It's wonderful.
Well, I just keep thinking, to me it's the difference between pornography and actually experiencing it.
There you go. We're better than
There you go.
I mean, there's different realities there, and I keep thinking that's
You're absolutely right about that. You know, and that's,
As an artist.
that's even like reading a book online
Mhm.
on a Kindle versus holding a book. You know, it's the same, it's so much more visceral in real life, and you
Now,
get,
some people might like the pornography better than the
Well,
actual experience, but that's a big.
they maybe
difference.
use
Let's
ASOS.
talk
I
about
no
that
comment
later.
on that. Yeah.
I was gonna say that not many people maybe know this anymore, but Albert Barnes, when he had his collection, he would not allow anybody to take a picture of it because he really believed that you had to encounter the work directly.
I agree.
And it used to be that it wasn't in books, it wasn't anywhere.
Yeah.
And they've changed that now, and photography's gotten a little better. I mean, there were some blurry black and whites, but he just really believed that you had to encounter the
So,
piece directly.
I get that question a lot regarding, do I make prints? And it's not because I have to have someone buy my big painting. I just feel really strongly about that the print doesn't evoke what I want in the painting. And I would rather work with someone and make a smaller painting or take payments or whatever that is to make it easier for that person to have real art in their life. Whether it's my art or Laura's art or the kid down the street, it doesn't matter. Real art is the important thing. Live, physical, real art, not a print. Yes.
As a fellow painter, one of the reasons I love to go to shows, openings, closings is I totally agree with you 100% about supporting the artist in terms of that. But I also find every time I go to a show, it's an educational experience. I'm there to see it, to enjoy it, but I'm also there to learn. You know, it's inevitable. You know, somebody comes up to you and says, "Rage, how did you end up doing that?" Or, you know, so, you know, other artists are always, you know, curious, you know, about what fellow artists are doing. So I think that's a huge, important aspect of it.
One of the reasons why I go to color white, and he'd not ever really used white. This was in some I don't even know what the gallery was. I don't think they're in existence anymore. And it was this big aha moment about white. And I was really struggling with this painting back in my studio, and I took white and scraped it across the background, and it transformed the painting. Actually, it's that painting. So it was dark red, and there were blacks in it, and I put the white in the background. And Martin, I always take away usually one thing from every artist talk that just stays with me, and I'm like, what is that? And I have to think about it, whether it's the name of another artist or a technique. And that's another reason, if you're an artist, going to other artist talks, you hear things that you just would not experience otherwise. Yes.
I think people wanted to know a little bit about each of your the processes that you use.
Right there, bro.
And I think Laura, there's a lot to talk about.
Well, I've used about every single material known to man in my artwork. I was a textile artist for about 30 years before I ever even looked at ceramics and painting. I had been painting all along, but I love material. I love working with material. I love figuring out how to make the material do what I want it to do, which is, you know, different for every material. Part of my process is the exploration of that material. And a lot of people have asked me, well, how did you get this and how did you get this? I said, well, you know, it's all an experiment. No matter what you do, whether you're painting or sculpture or whatever it is, gardening, it's all an experiment. You never really know what you're going to get. I'm a big believer in letting the material tell me what it wants to do. So my pieces are not worked out and planned out ahead of schedule. They're maybe a little thumbnail, this kind of looks like it might be interesting, and then I'll just start working with the material, and the material almost, it's like telling me what to do. So I work with ceramic now, and I fire 3 different ways at this point: pit fire, wood fire, which is these 2 pieces, and raku fire. And each firing has its own look, has its own process, and I think that in discovering which of those firings works for me, I've really, you know, it's like, oh my God, look at this surface, you know, it's like, each one has its own unique surface, and each surface speaks to me in a different way. So I'm really an experimental, experiential artist, because that's what I like about being an art, is the experience.
Well, I don't have the material thing. I am just pretty much a straight up oil painter, but what I do have is there's the experimentation when I start out with the storytelling, because nothing's worked out when I hit the canvas or the board. I go in with some paint, some turpentine, and I just start to wildly sketch. In fact, someone commented earlier, it's very expressionistic the way I begin. And then I get tighter and tighter as I go along, and I haven't come to terms with that being expressionistic all the way through. So it's a similar way of thinking. It's just I'm not using necessarily the materials. I'm discovering the story as I go through, and it changes immensely all the way through. I mean, I very rarely have a painting where there's an idea in my head, I draw it out, it's done. I mean, it goes in, oh no, I'm taking that out, I'm not gonna, there was a pope in there, I put a bear in. These girls completely changed as I was doing it. There was a chair in there. And so that's where I am constantly evaluating and reevaluating what it is I want to say, and that experience as I'm painting.
Rachel, do you have a story in mind?
I have a general idea, but it's not, if it's worked out too much when I hit the canvas, I'm done. I'm going on to the next thing. I do not like to have, I actually had someone critique me and say, oh, you should do a complete drawing or a study and then blow it up. For me, it kills it. I like the energy. This is where that expressionistic part comes in. And I showed some people, and I'll happy to show anyone afterwards, the start of some of these paintings. I take progression shots, and it really is energetic, and I work broadly. And it's one of the reasons why I can't work small, because it's not in me to do like this. And so I really like to move my arm and my body and move back and forth. And so, so it just works out. And sometimes the story changes. You know, you think you have one thing and you're like, no, that's just not doing it. And you have to be fearless with that and say, that ain't working.
So in addition to composing the piece, you have a story in your head.
Yes, generally. They're words sometimes. Sometimes it's a story. Words will come into mind about things, phrases I hear, news I hear. I only have 2 paintings in here that are autobiographical. The rest are sort of more about the plight of the world and people and what's going on. Even though they look fanciful and dreamlike, they're not. It's all about what is happening in the world.
Which 2 are autobiographical?
This one and that one. This one's really autobiographical. That was experiential autobiographical. An experience in France I had. So, yeah. Any other?
Do you have your story before you paint it, or does it change as you paint it?
Both. So I will have an inkling of what I want to paint, and then as the imagery comes through, the dynamic changes and possibly what the story is. That changed, actually, that autobiographical one. I had wild boars in there. I had everything. It was so different. The figure was pretty much as is, but it just, I didn't know the heart was going to be in there, and then it became a painting about me. I started in France, brought it home, didn't finish it for 2 years. Just let it sit there and percolate. And then as that experience percolated in me, because it was really a phenomenal first-time experience for me, the story emerged. So, and you have to be willing to let things rest too and not overwork them. That's another thing.
Or you can do what I do.
Break it apart and throw it away.
Well,
No.
sometimes I do that. Sometimes I just
Yeah.
take a hammer, but sometimes I just work on 5 pieces at once.
That's what I do. I work on 5
Because
pieces. Yeah.
for me, to stop working is not a good thing. So with clay, because it's a process-oriented, conditional thing, you
Yeah.
have to work it till you can't work it anymore, and then you go to the next thing.
Yeah. Well, I work on 3 or 4 at once,
Yeah.
so that I don't get too precious
Right.
with one. It's only when I get to the finish where I'm doing the little smudgy detail things that I'll then just finish that painting. But it's a way you can be fearless with your paintings by not letting when I say rest, I don't mean like it's sitting there resting, you're not doing anything. It's more that you're letting that moment rest, and then you move on to the next one, and you're looking
Right.
back at like, oh, I did have one painting I really loved. It was one of my first solo shows. And it was of this boy, and it was, he had this feather spear, and he's like a warrior young lad, like maybe 16 or something, and he had this childlike bride across his lap. And I loved the whole idea of it, but it didn't work. So I brought it home, and literally it was on the floor, unstretched. I was walking over it. And one day I'm looking at it upside down and going, I was ready to throw it out. I was like, oh, he needs to be a she. So I cut it apart, made this smaller painting, the whole thing transformed, and finally it just birthed in a whole new way. And sometimes that happens, you don't expect it.
Yeah.
You have to be open to
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that.
You have to listen to what it's saying to you.
And you can't be precious. Precious
Yeah.
just doesn't work.
Yeah.
The old hammer.
A lot of people think about work in a linear fashion, beginning, middle, end. And I think if you're more an organic thinker and you work on several pieces at once, they're like relationships. And even like in relationships, you have the ability to get away from some, go back to some, rethink it. And I've always felt personally that's a great way to do it, because I have to think fresh sometimes. And if you go from beginning to end, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think that your subconscious works on pieces. When you put them away, because you don't know where to go, you put them away, or you put them aside, or wrap them up in plastic. It's my word. And just leave them alone for a while. It's like your subconscious is working on them, even though you're not aware of that. And when you finally open them up and look at them, you go, oh, okay, now I understand.
Well,
what I
you
have
have
to do.
that piece over there with the distributor cap.
Yeah.
How long did it take? It was take 10 years?
Yeah, 10 years.
To figure out how to make that piece? Finish that piece?
I started it, I found this distributor cap, which is no longer work. We don't have it in our cars anymore. It was sort of a dysfunctional piece of equipment, and I thought, oh, it's so cool looking, and it's black.
Yeah.
So I made the figure that goes with it and attached them. And then I had wires coming off of it, so of course it had to be hanging from something, but what the hell was I gonna hang it from? You know, I went through my collection of many found objects. I have boxes and boxes, boxes of found objects. Found something, put it together, but I couldn't figure out how to hang it on the wall.
Yeah.
It took me quite a while to figure that out. And I took a class this summer with a gentleman from Santa Fe, and he showed me how to make the right connection. I was like,
Oh, wow.
oh, of course.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah. One more topic to talk about, and that is collecting. And this can just be very brief. But I know that you guys wanted to talk about the importance of collecting and the accessibility of collecting. Like that, you know, collecting, anybody can be a collector. Would you say that's true?
I do. I think, you know, here, even though there's these big things, there are smaller things there that people either spatially or financially can afford. I think it's important to go around, again, experience art, whether it's a small bowl that someone makes, that's a collection. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I have a whole bunch of those.
Yeah.
And then,
Mine.
yours. And, you know, it doesn't have to be a grandiose, a collector is anything. You know,
Yeah.
you could collect doll parts, whatever it is that like appeals to you. So I think it's important to bring things into your life that bring you joy, mystery, connects you with the people that you buy it from, has a story, and you know, whether it's bringing up stories from your childhood or experiences from traveling, that's all part of collecting. And again, I think it's the most important thing is having real art, actual art in your house over. I'm not disparaging to people. I don't want it to come that way about prints, but there's such a difference. There's such a breathing. You feel the artist in this. You know, you feel the work. You see the work. And there's part you don't even see. You know that it's there. It fills your heart in a way that a print does not.
And there's a lot of different ways of collecting, so.
Yeah.
I have clients or patrons that have many pieces, but then I have people that only have just started, you know,
Right.
and payment plans. you
Payment
know. You can
plans.
do that with galleries.
Absolutely.
You can't always do
Absolutely.
that online.
People
Payment
don't realize that,
plans.
yeah.
And
it's a-
artists will do that too,
All the
payment
time.
plans.
Mhm.
Yeah, $400 or $4,000. So, you
Yeah.
know, you can say, I've done that so many times. If
Yeah.
someone's really want to work, it's more important to get it into their house at some point and just work it out. And you know, the really great thing about payment plans, who doesn't like to get a check every month? It's like free money. It doesn't go out the door in one fell swoop for like car repairs or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Good point.
Okay.
Good point. Well, thanks everyone, and thanks for coming.
yeah, it was great.
It's a beautiful exhibition, and the two of you, your pieces just work together so well. Everyone's been talking about that aspect of the show, and we're just thrilled and sorry that it's over.
Last day.
Last day, yeah. But thanks again for sharing all your.
Thanks everyone for coming
Thanks
out.
for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, peace out, Kenny.
All right.